The 90s gave us plenty of crime classics, but this video is about the ones that slipped through the cracks for most people, unless you're a serious film fan. Films that got buried, overlooked, or simply never found the audience they deserved. So today, let's give them their due. And if there's one you think should be here, keep the list going in the comments. We start with John McNaughton's Normal Life. Released in 1996, it barely registered at the box office, but audiences back then clearly missed out on something special. Based on the real lives of Jeffrey and Jill Erickson, the film follows the volatile dynamic of a husband and wife bank-robbing team. But don't expect another stylish Bonnie and Clyde knockoff. This is a much more sobering look at the American middle class and the desperation that can fester behind suburban doors. It's authentic, it's gritty, and it treats its subjects like real people caught in a downward spiral rather than Hollywood caricatures. The performances are what really seal the deal. Ashley Judd is stunningly convincing, but the real revelation is Luke Perry. While many still remember him for his heartthrob days, this was arguably the finest role of his career. Now, let's turn our attention to Monument Avenue, sometimes released under the title Snitch. It's a 1998 film from the late Ted Dem, a director whose work still doesn't get talked about enough. At the center is Bobby O'Grady, a small-time criminal forced to question his loyalty after violence hits people close to him. The film avoids the typical 90s trap of trying to mimic Tarantino cool. Instead, the dialogue feels grounded and natural, and the movie uses small, everyday moments to build its world. That approach really pays off. You start connecting with these characters through the way they talk, drink, and move through the neighborhood long before the real tension sets in, even though they're hardly sympathetic people. One False Move is a rare kind of crime film that starts as a brutal thriller, but ends as a deeply human story. The events here aren't driven by flashy chases or choreographed action, but by the weight of who these people are and the choices they've made. A trio of criminals, including a young Billy Bob Thornton, murder 6 people in Los Angeles before heading toward Texas with cash and cocaine. Their path eventually leads to Star City, where we meet Police Chief Hurricane Dixon, played by Bill Paxton. Dixon is a likable, slightly naive officer who hasn't even pulled his gun in 6 years. He's the kind of guy who settles problems with words and dreams of making it big in the city. Naturally, the LAPD detectives who arrive to intercept the killers don't take him seriously. He's clearly out of his league in their eyes, but the movie slowly turns that assumption on its head. In the end, Dixon's deep personal knowledge of the town and its people matters far more than swagger ever could. Directed by David Mamet, Homicide is a brilliant crime drama and easily one of the best neo-noirs the 90s had to offer. The plot follows a Jewish homicide detective, played by Joe Mantegna, as he investigates the murder of an elderly woman in a candy shop. At first, he refuses to buy into any paranoid theories about the crime, but he quickly realizes there's much more to the case than he thought. With Mamet regulars like Mantegna and William H. Macy in the cast, the film really lets that sharp, rhythmic Mamet talk shine, delivered by actors who know exactly how to handle it. Before he was directing 50 Shades sequels, James Foley was making films like After Dark, My Sweet. Released in 1990, it's arguably his second-best crime film, sitting just behind the brilliant and similarly underrated At Close Range. The story follows Kevin "Kid" Collins, a former boxer who flees a psychiatric hospital after killing an opponent in the ring. While wandering through California, he meets Faye Anderson, a widow with an alcohol problem, and begins a relationship with her. Things take a darker turn when her Uncle Bud pulls Collins into a kidnapping plot. He agrees, and the film slides deeper into something bleak, polished, and deeply unsettling. Based on the novel by Jim Thompson, the movie stays remarkably close to its source material. The tone constantly shifts between reality and madness, anchored by a heavy, nihilistic streak that runs through the entire film. One of John Boorman's finest works, The General centres on Martin Cahill, the notorious Dublin crime boss known as the General. Interestingly, Boorman himself was actually one of Cahill's burglary victims. Cahill was a complex figure who developed something of a folk hero aura, stealing from the wealthy and building a reputation that blurred the line between outlaw and local legend. Boorman avoids the usual gangster cliches, choosing instead to portray Cahill with the weight of a hero in an ancient tragedy. Brendan Gleeson is absolutely riveting, perfectly capturing the nuances of the character. Little Odessa earned Tim Roth an Independent Spirit Award nomination and marked the feature debut of director James Gray, who spent a year trying to secure financing. The story centers on a bitter, dysfunctional Russian Jewish family in Brooklyn's Brighton Beach. Roth plays Joshua, a cold-blooded hitman who returns to his old neighborhood, and the film follows the fallout of his arrival. While his younger brother worships him, his father absolutely loathes him. It's a very grim, dark story, but Gray finds the right balance between a gritty crime narrative and a heavy family tragedy. Abel Ferrara and screenwriter Nicholas St. John built an incredible legacy together with films like King of New York, Ms. 45, and The Addiction. Sadly, 1996's The Funeral marked their final collaboration. It's a real loss for cinema, as this film is arguably as powerful as King of New York, prioritizing deep character studies over a fast-paced plot. While many crime dramas are criticized for glamorizing the lifestyle, you can't make that claim here. Ferrara strips away all the glamour to tell a heavy, grounded story about a family in mourning. The film centers on the funeral of Johnny Tempio, the youngest of three gangster brothers, a man with left-wing sympathies whose death forces the family to confront its own violence, loyalties, and contradictions. It's a somber, terrific look at the internal life of a gangster family that avoids all the usual cliches. Charlie Sheen might be a bit of a punchline today, but there was a time when he was a massive star on the rise with the potential to be the next Tom Cruise. In 1993's Beyond the Law, he delivers what is arguably one of the best performances of his career. He plays Daniel Saxon, an undercover cop recruited to infiltrate a violent biker gang involved in drug and arms trafficking. Writer-director Larry Ferguson based the screenplay on a Playboy article called Undercover Angel, which detailed the real-life experiences of an agent named Dan Black. The result is an excellent, engaging undercover story. It's not just about the mission, it's about Saxon's struggle with the demons of his past and the fraying of his own identity as he becomes more and more immersed in the biker world. It's a well-acted, gritty drama that shows a side of Sheen we rarely saw after this era. Clockers is how we're ending today's video. Martin Scorsese was originally attached to direct this adaptation of Richard Price's acclaimed novel, but when he moved on to Casino, Spike Lee took over. While Lee is obviously a household name, some of his finest work like Jungle Fever, Mo Better Blues and especially Clockers rarely gets the spotlight it deserves anymore. The film is a powerful take on the urban drug epidemic, defined by a dazzling visual style. While it's a bit less energetic than some of Lee's other films, its raw approach is incredibly compelling. As one review put it, the movie is more of a sober, mournful and meditative expressionism than you'd typically expect from a crime drama. It's a heavy, atmospheric finish to a decade of cinema that had so much more to offer than just its mainstream hits.